Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. It's really great to be with you. For those of you who are usual viewers, you can see this is a very different view from my virtual office that I usually come live from. I'm currently in Durban in South Africa, and we have just today given a workshop here to a company with some coaches from the OpenExO community. And I'm really excited to chat this evening for me and evening for Hazel, who is calling in from Germany. Not originally from Germany, as I guess you might be able to guess by the name and by the accent as soon as Hazel comes on. And before we get Hazel up on screen, I wanted to just share a note from Michael Janssen, who just said, Hazel is a true artist who excels in every medium she touches, from 3D modeling in ZBrush and Blender to multiverse builds and live virtual reality paintings. There's no creative tools she can't master. Her work is infused with meaning and storytelling, captivating audiences both digitally and traditionally. Hazel's art and process are alluring as she pushes the boundaries of creativity and in unforgettable ways. Don't miss out on experiencing her exceptional talents. And with that, I want to welcome Hazel to OpenExO Live. How are you doing this evening?
Hi, thank you so much. That was a very kind introduction. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I always like to find the people who know each other within the community, and I know you're fairly new to the community. And Michael was one of the people who perhaps shared EXO with you, and
yes,
and
he
ultimately
introduced me.
Yeah, I always like to ask the person I'm chatting to start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself. Today's topic is about EXO and art and AI and this era we're living in. A little bit of a different discussion to what we usually have, which is quite fascinating. So just tell us about yourself and also how you came to join the OpenExO community.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Well, my personal journey starts in the fine art world, actually. So it's been quite sort of long and winding journey from there to where I am now, which is creating virtual spaces and virtual environments and using a lot of VR tools to create with. So I started off painting in 2D. I made jewelry, which is sort of a bit of 3D work as well. And then in 2020, I got a headset and I started creating in VR. And perhaps a month after that, I got the opportunity to create virtual worlds for the virtual Burning Man, which went live in 2020 due to the pandemic. So they were asking digital creators to make virtual spaces for people to portal into from the virtual player. And the first time I even used like a virtual social VR platform was being given a guided tour around the virtual Burning Man player, which had a really authentic, I've never been to the real Burning Man, but it had a really authentic feel to it. And experiencing that immersively in VR was absolutely incredible. So I created some worlds to portal into from that playa experience. And that was where my whole journey started. And I just fell in love with creating virtual spaces and just sort of infusing a space with a narrative so people can sort of really be portaled into your imagination and just be fully immersed in your idea and the imaginative story that you want to capture.
Okay, wow. And so fairly new into the whole world of technology and leveraging that within your artistry.
Yeah. And then it was only in October of last year that Michael and I built the virtual space on Decentraland for the OpenExO showcase. So it was an immersive space to showcase all of the aspects of OpenExO, so people could walk around a building and see all of the different aspects and models that OpenExO are working with, all the different technologies that they're encouraging other people to work with to stay relevant, so people could really have an immersive feel for what OpenExO is. And it was through that I sort of got acquainted with the community.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And the one thing, of course, that's so important when it comes to exponential organizations and the EXO model is having a massive transformative purpose, right? Whether that's as an organization really having a purpose, but that comes from personal purpose. And so that's something we're always talking about and discussing. And I was wondering if that's something that you've looked at and built, looking at your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I've always enjoyed creating sort of imaginary landscapes and dreamscapes, whether it be in 2D or 3D or whatever. But the other day, I got back into creating with physical materials. And I was really enjoying that. And after I was doing that, I sort of sat back and I thought to myself, why am I doing this digital thing? I really had to sort of revisit that question for myself. And I think it's something that everybody should do once in a while, just sort of revisit why you're doing something and ask yourself that question. And I really sat down, I sort of sat with it for a little bit. And I realized that it's not just language that shapes the way we think and shapes the way we think about reality, but it's also our environment as well. And I think our virtual spaces need these idiosyncratic expressions of creativity and experiences from a diverse set of minds, I think. Because I feel like we need diversity of creative thought, and sort of introducing a sort of more heterogeneous sort of landscape into our sort of virtual environments. Because, and of course, you're familiar with the concept of digital twinning. So if we twin our virtual worlds to our physical spaces, our physical spaces have become quite corporate and bland, I feel. And if we put that kind of look and feel into our digital spaces as well, I feel that has an impact on your psyche, on the way you think. And I think it has an impact also on creativity itself. On creativity, on divergent thinking. So if you're exposed to lots of different types of expression, lots of different types of creativity, and like I said, like this heterogeneity of expression, I feel that frees you up to be able to think in more creative ways, rather than being exposed to sort of the same sort of corporate look and feel. And that's something I really wanted to sort of push with my work and encourage others to do the same, because I wanted to sort of introduce some beauty and creativity into a lot of these spaces.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. It's so interesting how many people don't realize it, because it's not really a driver for many people. So I've done this test, which is about your personal driving dynamics, and it's really interesting. And one of the driving dynamics of the sort of 30 that is on this test is artistic appreciation. And not many people are driven by artistic appreciation. It's generally something that's sort of middle of the road for many people. And I worked with someone who it was their number one driver, and they could not be creative in an office environment. They just said, this space does not give me what I need to be creative, and would always really force the fact that if we were going to do, strategy or whatever, we had to be in a beautiful place. And the interesting thing is, for those of us who it wasn't a driver, we didn't think it made a difference. But actually, when you looked at the outcomes in a beautiful space versus in a bland space, there is a difference. Now, this is completely anecdotal. I can only say from a few sessions, but it would be very interesting research, and maybe it's out there, and I just have never seen it. Because I definitely agree with you. In a space where you have beauty, you actually can then tap into, I think, different creative areas within yourself, right?
I think it's good for divergent thought as well, rather than linear thought, because a lot of our spaces are designed to be optimized. They're not designed, like you said, for beauty. They're designed for optimization, for productivity in sort of one area. And they're not designed to foster creativity or divergent thought. And it would be very, very interesting to conduct studies on exactly this topic, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that given that in a virtual space, you're not confined to what you are in a physical space, right? If you're building I'm sitting right now in a physical conference room, right? And it's defined by budget and space and and building regulations, whereas in a virtual space, none of that exists, right? So
it doesn't apply.
Why can't the building be a tree and a cloud and whatever it needs to be? Yet it's so true how we just take what is happening in reality and potentially just put that into that virtual space.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's sort of like this recursive effect of lack of imagination that is born out of this physical space that is now being projected onto the virtual space. So it's sort of happening sort of recursively now. So it'd be really great if every office could be equipped with VR headsets so that people could portal themselves into some kind of fantastical space once a day and sort of really experience something out of this world that you could never experience, you never even experience in physical space. Like, do your work floating on a cloud, do your work under the ocean, or what have you. It can be any fantastical thing you can think of, or in some kind of imaginary world. What if people could do their work there? So that means you wouldn't have to reorganize or rebuild your physical spaces. You could just have people portal into a virtual space and sort of gain their creativity that way. And I think a lot of companies would benefit from that, because having creative thinkers on your team is beneficial to you. People who sort of think in creative ways, can think divergently. You can think around corners and think around problems in a more effective way. So I'm wondering if just changing up the work environment virtually might help.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really great experiment that should be run, right? And that should be really tested. I mean, I'm pretty sure that could work, but it's so interesting. And now, I mean, on the topic of VR and virtual reality, metaverses, etc. With the rise of ChatGPT now, there's a lot of talk about how, okay, well, the metaverse is perhaps not actually happening. Now, for someone who's actually designing and sort of in that space, I was interested to hear your thoughts on, you know, on that sort of mainstream media. Is it really just mainstream media saying, you know, this is the hot topic right now, and not actually knowing what they're speaking about?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, you know, everything has sort of like its phase of being sort of hot right now. There's an element of that for sure, especially when it came to metaverse. It was sort of like a real buzzword for a while. But there's also the accessibility element as well. It's not as, it's sort of overpromised a little and under-delivered. There are not that many fully immersive VR metaverse platforms that offer a great user experience, great graphics. And VR itself does have that accessibility hurdle because it requires that you buy a headset. Which is also can be very uncomfortable to wear for a lot of people. And then if we're talking solely about accessibility, well, ChatGPT is accessible on your phone. There's no hurdle there at all. I mean, we can talk about whether that's a good thing or not, but there's literally no hurdles for accessing it. But with VR, yeah, it still has or VR metaverse spaces, let's say, it still has a long way to go, both with user experience and technology. So a lot of the metaverse platforms that we currently have aren't fully VR enabled, maybe don't have the best graphics, like Decentraland, for example. And the most popular VR platform, like fully immersive social VR platform, Altspace, has just been sunsetted, which is a huge blow for the entire sort of VR space. And a whole community went with it. There were whole communities of people who sort of relied on that space, on that platform, for connection, weekly meetings, events, what have you. And yeah, getting rid of that was a huge blow for the VR space, I have to say.
No, absolutely. I mean, we often speak about, you know, within the community that, you know, where that sort of knee of the exponential curve is when user experience becomes easy, right? And, you know, that's 100% where ChatGPT is right now. But you're 100% right on the sort of virtual reality space. It's not super simple, and so, but it, you know, does that mean it's gone? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, it's got to cook for a while. You know, it's not ready yet.
Yeah. Absolutely.
However, I think augmented reality is sort of like the low-hanging fruit of immersive experience because of the accessibility factor. You know, you can instantiate an augmented reality experience on your phone or tablet, you know, with a QR code or clicking on a link or what have you. And you can instantiate an entire experience, an entire animation, you know, animated object. You can walk into a portal. They're getting quite, you know, the experiences that you can experience through augmented reality are getting quite sophisticated now. And I think there's a bunch of augmented reality glasses coming out as well, which are lighter, they're easier to wear, they're integrated. Obviously, the augmented reality experience is integrated with your environment, so you don't have this problem of, you know, needing to be in this safe, you know, space without any things to walk into or anything like that. And you also have
where you're gonna, you know, lightsaber your TV off the wall.
Yeah. And you have the experience of sort of reality intruding on your virtual experience, whether that be sounds or smells or the furniture. And it's quite jarring to be in this fully immersive world, whatever that might be, and then having sort of these outside experiences sort of intrude on that, which for some people can be quite jarring as well. So having an integrated experience for a lot of people makes more sense.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I guess switching gears a little bit into AI and, you know, generative AI as an artist. I mean, I know from, you know, from the workshops that you ran at the event last year and whatnot, that, you know, it's something that you've embraced. There's obviously concern from, you know, from some creative individuals. In fact, today at the workshop we ran, you know, there were marketing people who, you know, who felt that this is making their value seem less, because people are like, oh, we can just get AI to do that, and it's that easy, and that they sort of felt that was quite a negative view. And so be interested just to hear your thoughts on working with AI, you know, as a creative.
I mean, a lot of tools that we use as creative have AI built into them. So Unity now has, I think, a text to image plugin. A lot of Adobe products use AI as well now. So a lot of these AI features are now being integrated into sort of like the creative suites that we use. I like to use things like the Skybox generator from Blockade Labs. So that makes building an immersive environment very much easier. And it's great for sort of taking out the grunt work of certain processes. However, I do think the creative process, I'm one of those believers of the creative process having to be a little bit difficult. I like it to be difficult because I think that's almost the point behind being creative. You have to struggle with it for a little bit, I think. You know, when you overcome a creative hurdle, there's a real sense of achievement. You get a sort of a sense of meaning and purpose, like you've really achieved something, like you've learned something difficult, or, you know, you've managed to create, you know, solve a problem creatively, or you've overcome a technical issue, whatever that might be. And you just got to push through it, and you have that sense of achievement afterwards. Yeah, I think it should, in general, it should be difficult. I mean, obviously not everybody thinks like I do, but I don't know. I feel like it's like gestating and then giving birth. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be that difficult. I don't know, but I think there should be some amount of struggle. You should wrestle with your creativity a little bit. I don't think it should be made too easy, because otherwise, what do we struggle with? And if we don't struggle with anything, what becomes meaningful? And I think creativity is one of the right things to struggle with, because it's not something that you struggle with that's going to sort of take away from your life or traumatize you in any way. It's meaningful struggle. And I think we need meaningful struggle. So there's a certain amount of grunt work that, you know, makes the whole process easier. And obviously, if you're on a design team and you're delivering on a deadline, this is really important. But if you're an individual creative making one-of-one pieces, dig into that struggle. You've got to do it. So it does depend on what you're doing. Like if you're delivering for a client and you can deliver that work a week faster, then everybody's happy. So it does depend. It does depend what you're doing. And there's a lot of tools out there to make that process a lot more seamless and a lot smoother.
Yeah, but I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it does make sense, especially for like real like artistic appreciation. Like there's there's been effort that's gone into that. I mean, that's why it's got value, as opposed to just, you know, slapping something together. I guess it's really interesting, though. I mean, and I mean, to those people who are very anti it or afraid of it, like, what is your you know, what do you say to those people?
I would just say, just keep doing what you're doing. If you're a creative person and you found the thing that you like to do, at the end of the day, it's about self-actualization, isn't it? Are you doing what you were put here to do? Is AI helping you, or does it not help you? If it doesn't help you, don't use it. Just keep, if you're an oil painter or you're a sculptor, just carry on. Do your thing. If you know, if you like painting in Procreate, keep doing that. If you like making virtual worlds, keep doing that. I honestly think that as far as, you know, the conversation around AI and that goes, I think people are getting a little bit hysterical around it. Just, you know, I just think people just need to just carry on doing what we're doing. You know, there's always going to be jobs for creative people. There's always going to be opportunities for creative outlet. And at the end of the day, art made by humans is always going to be valuable, because art is about the human experience. And that's actually what people are purchasing. They're purchasing the experience of another human. You know, it's a proxy for my experience through the world. And it's being sort of distilled into this piece of artwork. My experience of my life at that time has sort of been sublimated and turned into a work of art. And it's a proxy for that. So, and that's what's valuable. And that's what people will continue to purchase if it's about, you know, the value of art. If we're talking about the value of art.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, Hazel, this has been a fascinating discussion, quite different to what we usually discuss. And we've blown past the time we usually spend. And so I wanted to thank you, but I always like to end off just by asking, you know, if there was one thing you could share with people, what is the one thing that you would like
the one
people
thing
to know?
Oh gosh. So there's actually one thing that's been on my mind recently a lot. I mean, it's very sort of very specific, and I actually applied for a grant to research this topic because I was interested, stroke concerned about it, and that is the effect on humans interacting with large language models predominantly over time, and how that would affect us cognitively. So if we're in effect interacting with an agent or agents that produce content without understanding meaning the way we understand it, or don't have relevance realization, or realize relevance in a different way to what we do, how does that affect us cognitively? And how will that affect the way we think and the way we process reality as a result? So I would like, really, ideally, I would like linguists, cognitive scientists, sociologists, to all be part of this conversation, because it's really important. And it kind of actually relates back to what we were saying about how our environments influence us psychologically and cognitively as well.
Absolutely. I think it's something that is so important for us to actually to look at, right? I mean, we're talking about this technology that is different to every other technology we've ever had, right? You know, when we've seen, you know, blockchain and the rise of computing and sensors and all of this. It's fantastic, but those are not technologies that can think for themselves, essentially, and so really important that, as humanity, we get clear about this, because we know that technology affects. I mean, if we look at the effect of social media, I mean, we would have done it differently if we knew what we knew now, right? And so, yeah, let's do that for something like AI. Hey,
we could consider social media an analog for this. I mean, it's not the same, but we have data on how technology changes our behavior, changes the way we think. And in fact, I was actually going to ask, is OpenExO does it have, or is it planning to have a research arm for researching just these kinds of topics? And is that something that's feasible?
Yeah, so actually, in fact, we have a group within the community, which is called the OpenExO Community Research Group, and it's folks in academia, folks in business, people interested in quite immersive research, looking at specific topics, and so I'm happy to connect you to those people, and
that would be fantastic.
It has been wonderful chatting with you. I hope you have an amazing evening in Germany, where the sun is still got a few hours until it sets.
It has.
And yeah, look forward to connecting with you and connecting you to others within the community.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This conversation was great.
Awesome. Have a fantastic evening, Hazel.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So great chatting to Hazel. We're going to end off today's EXO Live again with a video about the launch of Exponential Organizations 2.0 happening next week, Tuesday. Do join us, and we'll see you again next week, Thursday.
June 6th, it's the day that Salim and I are going to teach you how to build an exponential organization.
We're launching the second edition of the book, which goes into great detail about how do you build a 10x organization to completely change the future.
We're going to be teaching you how to build your massive transformative purpose that's going to guide you in a passionate fashion on what you're going to be building.
We found that organizations that follow this model deliver 40 times better shareholder returns than the ones that don't. So we'll talk about experimentation and how do you have an autonomous organization? How do you build community and crowd? How do you build dashboards? All of the characteristics that go into building a hyperscale organization that can scale as fast as technology can scale.
June 6th, it's a 3-hour workshop. It's free.
And it's free.
Yeah, it is free, and we've never done this before. So join us. You're going to get access to a free copy of our new book, Exponential Organizations 2.0. You're going to get access to an AI that allows you to query the book and actually get the answers you specifically need for the company that you're building.
Yeah, we have 24,000 people in the community ready to help anybody wanting to start a business. So come along, join the community, build an EXO, and most importantly, I think, pick the problem that you really, really want to solve, and we'll show you how to go about solving it.
Join us.
See you there.